I think we are going to recover. I think Bitcoin is going to come back and go higher. And people ask me, they say, well, how much should I buy? I said, buy an amount where if it went down 50%, your first inclination would be, oh, it's cheap, I want to buy more. Not, oh, I made a mistake, I'm going to sell it. This thing is unbelievably volatile. Under shorter periods of time, you can get crushed. Correction, retracement, absolutely, all the time. Either one of these things could come back down in. I think Bitcoin's going to hundreds of thousands, someday maybe a million. But there's going to be volatility. That's the thing that's hard. There will be severe pullbacks. 20 and 30% pullbacks, they're very common. And those are going to happen. Yeah. It's going to throw people off the scent. People do respond. They chase price. And could we shoot up to 200? Maybe. Then do we correct back to 100? Probably. But, maybe somewhere in here we correct back to 50. I kind of doubt it. It doesn't feel like we've reached the top yet. And I've had a lot of friends reach out to me and say, well, I should short it. And, a couple of Bitcoiners, in fact. And I came back to them. I said, be careful.
Today, we saw Bitcoin break the $73,000 mark, in what many believe is the beginning of the first major rally of 2026. After Donald Trump delivered new remarks on the state of the economy, he says everything is about to change, with a new Fed chair about to be instated in just a matter of months. This will have massive implications on not only the price for Bitcoin, but on the entire crypto market. The biggest crypto shock is coming, and Larry Lepard says no matter what, do not sell your Bitcoin. Lepard discusses the collapse of the fiat money system around the world and says there's a plan to take over Bitcoin and crypto. With BlackRock being one of the biggest players to get into the space, this will be the least of our concerns, as entire countries are now coming for Bitcoin. While Bitcoin's price spent much of the year in the red, currently sitting just above 72,600, everything for crypto is about to change in March. In this latest interview, Lepard discusses why it's more important than ever that nation-states adopt Bitcoin and incorporate into the global economy before the inevitable collapse of the current monetary system as we know it. Let's get right into the latest interview with Larry Lepard, as he gives us his prediction for Bitcoin in the coming months and why a massive surge in capital is about to pour into the space. Drop your comments down below and subscribe if you enjoy the content we do here.
How high up is up? There'll come a time when they'll be overvalued, and you know how people move. They don't do things right away. They take time. And I have a couple of friends who are Morgan Stanley brokers. It's a sad existence, and they just follow what they're told to do. And well, yeah, we're kind of taking 1% weightings or 2% weightings. They're just nibbling at it. And so, if what we're saying, we've been right, and it's being proven now that we've been right, and so people are like, okay, we're only in the first or second inning of being proven right. And some people are saying, well, the game's over. Okay, you're right, but now, sell it all because it's not going to continue. No. These are 5-year trends. These are big, long-term trends. And we really are in the first or second inning of a 9-inning game that may go into extra innings. So I was just studying some charts that showed in prior bull markets. What's ultimately going to happen is the way people have been trained to, quote unquote, buy the dip, people are going to become more and more aware that they cannot stop printing. It's always 2 steps forward, 1 back. There'll be things that will throw a wrench into this trade, but I can't see without a major restructuring of the government system that we have. I can't see them solving the problem. Wall Street does nothing if not chase performance. In fact, they're gonna have a hard time this year. If anyone actually looks at their statements and says, well, that's great. I'm in the Mag 7, I'm in the Triple Q, whatever. I'm up 20%. I appreciate that. But my friend over here who had the gold indices is up 100. Do we have any of that? Well, no, you don't. Why not? And so right. that broker's got to answer that question. That's what I try to point out, that it's really, you're not too late. And this is the way this game works. You have a productive growing business that's, gaining market share, increasing margins, doing all the good stuff, expanding its PE. That's a better investment than gold in most circumstances. But when you've got a very, very severely monetarily screwed up thing like what we've got right now, that's the other thing. The Bitcoiners will say, well, yeah, these prices are going up, but guess what? We're going to mine a bunch more gold. We're going to mine there's going to be a supply, and there's going to be all kinds of new supply. That's not how it works. That's just not how it works. That's a 10-year process. And we've been underinvesting in this market for 25 plus years. So even if these prices go up really high, really quickly, the bad news is we've got big inflation. The good news is they've rigged the market to go up so that if you can at least get in the market, you can kind of, sort of, maybe protect pace. Yeah. And so we're now just living in a world where everything's inflating, including the stock market. So I guess I would kind of describe it, monetary policy has been set to make sure that all number goes up over time,
Right.
because the alternative is just so scary and unacceptable. And that's all fine as long as they can keep the inflation in check. And to their credit, they've actually kept it. I mean, it's not really in check, but they've held it together better than I thought they would. But I think that when you look at some of the charts that show how tight things are getting, and they really did pivot. I mean, they try and claim they did, and they're calling it reserve management. It's just QE, right? They're wiring it to continue to go up. So, woe be it for me to buy puts. In the last 10 years, probably the biggest mistake I've made was not understanding that and buying too many puts and losing money on all of them. And so now that I've given up, okay, now the market can go down because I've capitulated. In this kind of a system, I think you pointed to something very important. Kind of a switch got flipped, and things are a bit different. And this is a different system, and you have to recognize that. Now, that doesn't mean there couldn't be some outside factor that could really mess things up, or maybe just really high inflation. Really high inflation is really bad for stocks. I mean, if it truly breaks out in a big way. If they're forced into a big print, which I think they're going to be, I mean, I think this 40 billion a month is not going to be enough. It's going to be, there's going to have to be more. And as there is more, that's going to creep into the inflation. And Trump has basically said over and over again, whoever the new Fed chairman is, they're bringing.
We're going to zero.
Well, yeah, 1, 2, something lower. Don't get me wrong. It'll be stimulative. That's for sure. I mean, did you hear Trump say something about how, I want to see 20, 25% GDP growth? Well, yeah, you can get that if you have 15% inflation. I think that they're gonna run it hot. And that's really the key to the whole thing. Because if we can drain that thing, understand how corrupt our monetary system has become, we can stop a lot of problems, in my opinion.
Lepard says, the ongoing adoption of Bitcoin by governments, institutions, and media signifies a broader recognition of its value. Comparing the initial years to the current widespread interest and investment, with a giant spotlight on Bitcoin ETFs. He also suggests that BlackRock, under the guidance of Larry Fink, is currently driving the price. This move, he contends, will underscore Bitcoin's enduring relevance as an asset and its potential as a hedge against currency devaluation.
Between 2018 and 2024, Bitcoin went up 700 or 800%. If you missed the best 10 days, you were down. Well, it's going to go to 60, and therefore I'm going to sell it at 90, and I'll buy it back at 60. Well, good luck with that strategy, because you're going to wake up one day and it's going to be 150 going to 250. And how are you going to get back in? Nothing stops this train. We've got a broken governmental system where the government can spend money to buy votes, and therefore they think that those votes are free, but the money they're spending they don't have, and so in order to fill the hole, they print it. And so year after year after year. The only way to stay ahead of that is to own assets that will keep up or exceed that debasement in terms of price performance. And, if we go out and you ask the person on the street, do you know about Bitcoin, or do you own any Bitcoin? Half of them don't even know what it is. And then of the remaining half, probably only 5 or 10% own some of it. And yet it's better than gold. And so all of those people, just as all the people who didn't think they needed a PC now have one, all of the people who do not own any Bitcoin today, they're going to own it in the future. And so if you buy it today, you're buying something that everyone's going to want. It's what Michael says. It's inevitable. Everybody needs it, and they don't understand it, but they're going to come to understand it. And so it's really quite an amazingly asymmetric asset. The ARR, the average rate of return right now, is about 40%. And even after 10 years, when it should be at $1 million a coin, it's only declined to about 30% a year. So you've got relatively low management risk. And so, buy Bitcoin and just live your life. I mean, this is incredibly easy compared to trying to pick stocks. And so another print is, in my view, imminent. And frankly, it really just started. I mean, in Q4, the Fed, rather quietly and trying to say, hey, there's nothing to see here, folks, stopped QT and restarted QE at 40 billion a month, which when they were floating the trial balloon, they said it was only going to be 25. And they also said that it was going to start in January, but they came out in the Fed meeting in early December and they said, we're starting it in 2 days. Mm-hmm. So it strikes me that they had to do it pretty quickly. And so I think we're right on the cusp of it. I mean, I think, and you You also see it in the politics with what's going on with Trump and his war with the Federal Reserve. And we know that the next Fed chairman is going to be dovish. My sense is that we are going to go back to a low money environment and print more money, and the Federal Reserve balance sheet is going to start growing again very rapidly in what I call kind of, and what others have called the run it hot strategy. When you've got this much debt compared to your GDP, if you stop, you have massive deflation and a collapse. Think 1929, and no politician wants that, and they'll all trade off that against future inflation by printing money. And of course, once you start printing, the inflation doesn't appear immediately. There's a lag, but it will appear. And so my sense is it's probably in the next year, 18 months at the most, that the printing starts to really ramp up again. And I think the 9% inflation that we had in the last cycle, that will be exceeded. We'll have 12, 15, 20% inflation this cycle. I mean, Trump came out and tweeted that he thought, we should have 20% GDP growth. Well, the only way you can get that is with 15% inflation and 5% real growth. People don't realize this. You go back and look at some of the monthly inflation numbers. There's like 20% inflation one month in 1949. We're not going to have that as a solution. And my sense is that, this is going to ultimately lead to very, very high rates of inflation. And then you get the question of, do you do a monetary reset, have the courage to reset to Bitcoin and gold, or do you just let the inflation keep running? And, that has to do with the politics of it all. Why isn't Bitcoin working? And I know, and trust me, I'm a massive Bitcoiner. I'm a massive gold and silver guy. Bitcoin's not working vis-a-vis gold and silver because gold and silver are the easy go-to monetary debasement choice of billions of people who do not understand Bitcoin. And so what you're seeing right now is the monetary system break. And Bitcoin is much more of a liquidity indicator. And that tells you that right where we are on that curve tells you that liquidity is tight, and therefore Bitcoin is not going up. Bitcoin's going up and the Q is going down. So stocks are going down. So the correlation there, it's only 2 days so far that it's happened, but to me, there's a lot of signal there. And so, as it becomes apparent, I mean, gold has smelled out the future monetary debasement. Gold knows they understand that curve. Okay. Bitcoin understands that curve too, but liquidity is tight. Once it happens, Bitcoin's going to explode. It's going to go to 200,000, 300,000 very, very quickly. I mean, that's what's going to happen here.
He suggests transitioning to a Bitcoin standard as the world grapples with the impending crisis. He asserts that the promises made by the central banks have been hollow, leading to excessive money printing and a proliferation of poor investments. And with the aftermath of the recent inflation surge, this will not lead to a return to the status quo. He says we can expect Bitcoin to hit 250,000 this year, and then on to 1 million. But he's not the only one that shares this sentiment. Michael Saylor, Max Kaiser, and Cathie Wood all predict Bitcoin's price going from 6 figures next year and then on to hit 7 figures within the next 5 years. The halving is a key milestone for Bitcoin, as its price has historically multiplied times 10 every 4 years. We'll be keeping an eye on Bitcoin's price in the coming months. What do you think about Larry Lepard's price prediction for Bitcoin and where crypto is headed in the last part of the year? Comment down below. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Library of Wealth. We'll see you in the next video.